To find out more about all of the corruption in D.C., the federal government, and particularly the Obama administration era Justice and FBI departments, we are delighted to tell you joining us tonight is Victoria Toensing, former Reagan Justice Department official, former Chief Counsel of the Senate Intelligence Committee, and Joe diGenova, former U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. They are founding partners of diGenova and Toensing Law Firm. And great Americans both. Great to see you both. Victoria, let's start with you, William Campbell, and where we are with the FBI informant who has testified, I believe, before two committees. What is the upshot of, yes?
Lou, he met last month with three congressional committees, the Senate Judiciary and House Oversight and House Intel. And he met with them for over 4 hours. He supplied them with all kinds of documents, answered any question. He stayed until they were exhausted asking questions. Let me tell you some of the things that Mr. Campbell told them. He told them how the Russians would brag about their influence with the Clintons. He told them about APCO, and that's a Washington D.C. lobbying firm with a lot of ex-Clinton aides in it. And the Russians gave APCO $3 million for 1 year's worth of work. And they were to do a little bit of work for that, but they were also supposed to do free work for the Clinton Foundation. And the last thing that, well, they were more, but the last thing I'll tell you about is that the Russians mocked the Obama administration, laughing at how weak they were and how naive they were about what the Russians were doing.
You know, one can hardly blame the Russians for laughing at the Obama administration because all of the claptrap about meddling in the election, President Obama did nothing. They didn't intercede. They couldn't prevent it, whether it be at the DNC or other cyber attacks on federal government systems and networks. Joe, I mean, and now we're talking about another special counsel to find out more about FISA abuses. Do you think it's appropriate? Do you think it'll be effective?
Well, I think it has to be done. The abuses at the Obama Justice Department and FBI in front of the FISA court go to the bone of the function of the Justice Department. The Justice Department cannot investigate itself in this. There has to be a special counsel. And the only way to get to the truth, Lou, is through a federal grand jury where people are put under oath and they cannot lie. For example, the Inspector General has no authority currently over John Brennan or James Clapper or even James Comey, because those people have all left the department. He can't interview any of the people from the Department of State. So there has to be a grand jury with a prosecutor who has authority to subpoena all of those people. And the key to this, the key to the lying and the misrepresentations to the FISA court is going to be John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey, and the senior officials at the Justice Department.
You know, this is not, I hope, extraneous, but it just strikes me that James Comey, fired for a host of reasons, but certainly fired, has a book coming out. And I can't even understand why, in part of his responsibility, of course, the national security interests of the FBI, counterintelligence, and who approved his writing of that book, despite being fired, who approved the book itself? And where is that process? Do either
it has to go.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, we know. I've done this before with other clients. It goes through what's called a pre-publication review board. For example, if you work for the CIA, you have to sign an NDA, and if you're going to publish anything, it goes through the CIA's pre-publication review board. This one went through the FBI's pre-publication review board. Now, let me tell you, it went through in fast time, because I've had clients and they've waited 6 months. This thing went through within about 3 or 4 weeks. So I think there's still some special attention being given there.
And talking with House Intelligence Chair Devin Nunes tonight, talking about phase 2 as he constructed of his committee's investigations. He is focusing now, he and his committee and investigators are focusing on the State Department, Joe. The State Department has not even played a prominent role yet in what we have learned about whether it be the first dossier, the sealed dossier, the discredited, phony dossier, or another dossier known as the second dossier with Cody Shearer, another how shall I say it, Clinton operator who is, well, highly suspect in terms of both his methods of operating and his veracity. What do you expect to come of that?
Well, I expect that when there is a federal grand jury, in addition to the Nunes Committee investigation into the State Department, people will be forced by subpoena to give testimony, senior Department of State officials who are currently there or who have left. I think it will be demonstrated that they colluded with Clinton administration representatives and campaign officials and people like Sidney Blumenthal and Cody Scherer, who passed on completely unreliable information, which they hoped would be passed along to the FBI, and in fact it was, and that information was used fraudulently to obtain FISA warrants. This is why, Lou, the only way to get these answers, once the Nunes Committee is done, is to have a federal grand jury force all of these State Department people, CIA, DNI people, FBI, DOJ senior people, under oath in a grand jury. It's the only way we're ever going to get the full story.
And to add another twist, Lou, Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, is a witness. He should be recused from this altogether because he's going to have to testify why he signed a FISA application.
And I guess he will also, along with many people in the FBI and the Department of Justice, have to explain why they took seriously two obviously contrived dossiers authored by two highly suspect individuals who had not corroborated their claims in those documents, and yet FBI officials, Department of Justice officials, still went to a FISA court without giving context to either the political motivation of the authors or the, if you will, the credibility of the evidence that that was being treated as evidence, at least by the FBI.
Lou, we already know the answer to that, why they did that. Comey and Strzok and all of those people, including senior Justice Department officials, this was a plot, a brazen plot to exonerate Hillary Clinton in the email server case, to ensure that she became president. And if by chance she lost, part of the plot was to frame Donald Trump with a false crime. And that's why the Steele dossier was used. It was designed to create a false narrative about Trump and his people and to be used ultimately against them if Hillary Clinton lost. This is why this is the single most important scandal of the last 50 years, because senior DOJ and FBI officials engaged in conduct that was designed to corrupt an American presidential election. It wasn't the Russians who corrupted the presidential election. It was the American officials at the Department of Justice and the FBI.
And isn't it bizarre that there was no crime that the Rod Rosenstein could cite when appointing the special counsel?
Right.
And yet we are seeing such evidence of criminal activity, and there isn't no special counsel yet for that.
And as yet, not even a cry from the offices of the Speaker of the House or the Senate Majority Leader about engaging with the President to shut down what is obviously a futile enterprise on the part of Robert Mueller and his partisan team of attorneys and investigators. It's really, truly despicable. We always appreciate you being with us, and thanks so much. Victoria,
thank you.
Joe, thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you, Lou.
Take care.